Hey everybody, I'm Frank Kearney. I want to welcome you to our webinar today. I'm a DC lawyer practicing in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and all we do is represent people with serious injuries, whether that happens out on the roads, in a car accident, in a hospital or doctor's office due to medical malpractice, or of course on the job or due to a construction site accident, something like that. That's all we focus on. So I want to give you a lot of great information today about accidents here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. But before we begin, I want to extend a real warm welcome to everybody watching, of course, but especially to my clients and former clients, people that we've helped over the years. Really appreciate all your support and that continuing relationship that we always have. We're like a family here, and a lot of it has to do with the great people that we are privileged to represent and help. So let's get right into it. Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. We've got the Beltway, 495, 270, 295, I-95, 395. We've got a lot of people on our roads. We've got a large population center here. We've got a lot of construction and work trucks out there as well. And let's face it, we've got a lot of drivers who are driving way too fast, weaving in and out of traffic, aggressive driving, texting. And as a result, we've got a lot of accidents in this area, a lot of unfortunate, really bad crashes. All you have to do is check out the local news every night to see that. Unfortunately, the chances for all of us are, that we may get in an accident at some point here in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. So the question is then, what do you do when that happens? And that's what we're going to talk about for a few minutes today, okay? Now, first, let's start with what do you do right after the accident, when an accident happens? Well, there's 4 or 5 steps that you can take that'll really help you, I think, to kind of get things going, okay? Not just for your case, but for your health and your welfare. And that's what we really focus on. So first, get pictures of anything, at the scene that is important, like the damage to the cars and the placement of the cars. Maybe the person who hit you, or the truck, if it's got a big sign on the side, or the license plates. Those kinds of things so you can document it, okay? If the police come, of course, give them the honest answers to their questions and let them know exactly what happened. But get the officer's card or his name and number. Write that down. Or sometimes they'll give you a police report number. The police report itself won't be ready for, a week or 10 days or so. But you'll get that number, and that'll make it a lot easier for you to get the report then when you need it. Then the third thing also is, of course, get the names and the phone numbers of any witnesses who stop and try to help or say that they saw the accident. Don't rely on the police officer to do that, because the witness may leave early, or the police officer may write it down wrong or forget to put it in his report or his notes or what have you. But you want that documentation as well, okay? So those are 3, pretty basic things to do. Now, what's the most important thing to do? Well, that's get the medical treatment that you need. If it's a bad accident and you've got to go to the hospital, you need to take an ambulance to get there, we'll do that, okay? If you need somebody to take you to the hospital later that day, maybe because you're not feeling well, do that. Or if you need to follow up with a doctor, do that. You really want to get that squared away in the beginning to make sure that you're okay. Now, look, obviously we all know our own bodies, and you've got to trust that. If you've got a minor fender bender, you don't need to rush off to the hospital if you weren't hurt. I'm not saying that at all, okay? What I'm saying is, if you've got a serious injury or significant injury, don't delay in getting the treatment, because you don't know necessarily the extent of the damage yet, of the injuries that you have. So that's one of the things you want to really focus on. And we tell everyone that we help that's really the thing that we focus on, is getting the medical treatment that you need, getting yourself squared away, and then your case comes second, okay? And anything you need then comes second. So those are kind of the basics of the right away phase after the accident. Again, number 1, always get the medical treatment, okay? You've got plenty of time also if you've been hit by another driver. You don't need to feel rushed. You don't need to feel worried or stressed about that. Okay. Now, what do I mean by plenty of time? Well, there's a statute of limitations in all three jurisdictions, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And that just means that's the time limit for you to file a lawsuit, to file a case for any kind of injuries that you have against another driver, against another person, against another company. Okay? And in Virginia, that statute of limitations is 2 years. So you've got 2 years from the date of your accident to do that. Plenty of time. In Virginia, and in DC and Maryland, it's 3 years. So you've got even more time. Okay. So there's no need to rush into any decision. And that's important to know because insurance companies, the other driver's insurance company, they're going to be calling you. They're going to be sending you stuff. They're probably even texting you if they have your cell phone number. Okay. They're going to want to get a statement from you. They're going to want to get a lot of information from you. And they're going to say things like, look, if you don't get back to us in 30 days or in 15 days or something, we're going to close your claim or we're going to close your file. What does that mean? Well, it means absolutely nothing, okay? It's got no legal definition at all. You don't have to worry about it. They can close your claim on Tuesday and open it up again on Wednesday for you, all right? The important thing is that you take the time, you not rush into things or talking to the insurance company or signing anything that could hurt you down the road until you're really sure, until you know the extent of your injuries, okay? Now look, same thing with lawyers, right? I mean, you may get contacted from lawyers or people who know lawyers or TV ads or what have you, think you've got to rush to sign up with a lawyer. No, it doesn't work that way at all. It shouldn't work that way at all. Okay, you want to take the time. You want to focus on your recovery. You want to take the time to find and choose the best lawyer for you and your family. And I'll tell you, we've got lots of great information. We've published a book on this. We've got forms and guides that'll help you make the best choice for you and your family. Okay, even if that isn't us, that's fine because we only represent people with really serious injuries. And we do that because we only take on a case if we can add value to it. All right. So we can't always do that with a small case, and we'll be the first ones to tell you that. So we give specific attention and do things in a specific way. We've got a whole process, a whole system of doing things for anyone who's been seriously hurt. Okay. But again, the big thing is don't rush into that decision. Take the time so you're feeling better, so you're making the best decision for you and your family. And I think that's really important. Now, what's the basic process for an injury case? Okay, here's how it works. It starts with an evaluation of the accident. What does that mean? I mean, that's everything that has to do with the placement of the cars, the speed of the cars, the collision, determining who was at fault. Sometimes that means hiring an accident reconstructionist to reconstruct the entire scene and the accident and to do all the calculations to show that one person was at fault or maybe more than one person, and that caused the injury. Now, the other thing, of course, is analyzing and determining all the injuries, the extent of the injuries. And what that means is all the surgeries, the hospitalizations, the rehab, the future medical care and treatment that someone may need because of these injuries, the impact on their ability to work. Can they work in the same job? Are they never going to work again? Can they work in a job where they're not going to pay as much because now they have these physical injuries or limitations? Those are all things we analyze as well, together with the or in addition to the accident scene. Now, the other thing is, of course, which is really critical, is determining the amount of the insurance coverage or the other assets that are available to compensate you for all the harms and the losses that you have after the injury. And how do we do that? Well, there's a lot of ways to do that, and it's kind of varies from specific situation to specific situation. But I'll tell you one thing, and we'll talk more about this at the end in a few minutes, is Um, Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage is critical. Okay, we'll have more on that later, but we highly recommend that you increase, for most people, increase their coverage for uninsured or underinsured motorist collisions, because that protects you in case you're hit by someone who doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough insurance to make, to compensate you to pay for the harms and the losses that you've sustained because of the injury, because of the collision that someone else caused. Excuse me. You've got to determine whether there are any liens on recovery, whether there's any subrogation, depending on if you have health insurance or what health insurance company you have, if you have TRICARE, if you're military or Medicare or Medicaid or workers' compensation. If you're on the job when you get hit by another driver, you can have two cases, one a workers' compensation case, one a case against the other driver, and there's a lot of interplay or complexity with those two. So there's things like that to analyze to make sure that you're maximizing your recovery and that you're obeying the law as far as any rights of repayment that you may have if, for example, Medicare or Medicaid paid for your medical treatment. They have a right to get repaid out of the settlement what they have paid for as far as your medical treatment. At that point, you may want to try to negotiate a settlement with the insurance company. That's often the time to start that process. How long will that take? Really depends. Again, depends on the extent of the injuries and a lot of different factors as well. How much future care you're going to need, how much insurance coverage is available, the strength of the case, how, can you really prove it was the other driver's fault or not? Okay. Or file a lawsuit. That's also the point where we file a lawsuit. Now, a lot of people think, well, it's got to be one or the other, right? Because I hear that a lot. Well, should we settle a case or file a lawsuit? And you can actually do both. And you can kind of go down these parallel tracks, doing both at the same time. Just because you file a lawsuit doesn't mean your case is going to trial. You can settle it at any point. And oftentimes we do. And oftentimes, that's the best thing for you. Sometimes it's the best thing to settle it without even filing a lawsuit. Okay. And again, that's going to depend on your specific situation and the whole analysis. Some of those factors that we just went through are going to be really important in determining that, and making sure that you don't make a mistake, making sure that everything's done correctly. And in your best interest. So that's a little bit about how that process works. Now, for a lawsuit, realistically, you should have a pretty severe injury to file a lawsuit, and that's because of the cost and expense and time that it's going to take for that lawsuit to go through the process. Okay, let's say you file a lawsuit and you serve the lawsuit on the company or the person responsible. What happens next? You go through what's called discovery, and that means hiring expert witnesses and working with them on your case, maybe to prove how the accident occurred, how it was the other person's fault, how the injuries occurred within the car, or however it happened, the forces that direct those, and of course the medical experts. Who would testify about your surgeries, your hospitalization, your rehabilitation, that those were all caused by the injury, and then describe all the things that you went through. Those are a couple of examples of the types of expert witnesses that we typically use in these kinds of serious injury cases. Depositions, taking depositions of any witnesses or other doctors who may have seen you, healthcare providers, you yourself, of course, will almost certainly go through a deposition, and preparing for trial along the way. And that's kind of the basic outline of the process for for an injury case or a serious injury case. Now, there's a lot of reasons, like I said, to file a lawsuit, a lot of good reasons. But again, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you and your family, and that's the best thing for you. Okay, so that's kind of the analysis that you're going to go through to determine whether that's whether that's in your best interest. And if it is, that's great. This is sort of a a broad overview again of sort of the process and how it goes. The Now let me give you what I think are 5 major myths or misunderstandings